Hi friends, we're going to try and film this video before the sun goes down, and also, yes, I am wearing a Christmas shirt because it is the most wonderful time of the year. Hey everyone, my name is Isabella. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my channel if you're new. Today we are going over all of the books I read in October. I read 7 and it was a very good reading month in terms of context or content. It was just really good. I finished a lot of books that have been highly anticipated, and I also wanted to read only spooky books, and I did stay true to that. So that was really good. Well, all except for one, but we'll get to that. But yeah, without further ado, let's jump into the video. These are in no particular order, but the first book I want to talk about is Dracula by Bram. This book I was so proud of when I finished it because it's a classic and I'm trying to get into classic literature, but it's not something that I just get usually. So I was super excited when I started reading this and I actually really enjoyed it. The first quarter was very good. The middle got a little bit boring, but then it picked up again at the end. I gave it 4 stars. It was very good. I feel like everyone already knows what this book's about, but I do want to state that this story doesn't follow like Dracula. It follows a variety of characters who are trying to figure out who Dracula is, as well as kind of you're following them as they discover that vampires exist, pretty much. This book is not Hotel Transylvania, so don't think that, because it's not. It's very different, and if you've never read Dracula, you might not know that. You might think you're walking into some Hotel Transylvania story, but it's very different, and we also don't get to see a lot of Dracula himself in this. It's just following people as they discover vampires and Dracula, and honestly I really enjoyed it. All of the point of views I liked, so there wasn't any point of views that I found boring too, which was really surprising. But yes, I was really pleased when I finished this book. It is very easy to read, especially if you're someone who's worried about reading classic literature because of the writing. It's very, very easy to read, and yeah, I would highly recommend it. It's perfect for the spooky season, like literally perfect. I loved it. So once I finished reading Dracula, I was just in a really like vampire mood, so I picked up A Diary of Blood by S.T. Gibson, and I was not expecting to fall in love with this book the way I did. I believe I gave this book 4 stars as well. However, I will say in terms of enjoyment, I think I enjoyed this more than Dracula. However, in terms of like, obviously like the size difference too, like this one's a lot more detailed. It's a lot more, I don't know, like they're so different, and they're both 4 stars, but they're so different, but they both have that Dracula origin. So this story follows, what's her name? I really liked her name. Constanta. Very strange name. It follows her. She is the first bride of Dracula. And the way this story is told, I love it. So it's told in letters, which, yes. I think this is another reason why I loved this book so much. When books are written in like letter form, immediately like 10 times better. I don't know what it is. I think because a lot of the time the chapters are shorter and I'm a short chapter girly. This also had like sections. Let me see if I can find one. Like this one where it's like a letter, but it's literally like 1 page, and then you go into another one, and then this one might be 6 pages, and it's just like the difference, like it's not just long chapters, like you've got a variety. But anyway, it follows Constanta. She's writing letters to Dracula. However, Dracula's dead because she killed him. So it's like writing letters to the man she killed, and that's not a spoiler, it's on the back. It's so good, and I will say the ending was a little bit like with both of these books actually, the ending was a little bit anticlimactic. Like, I was waiting and waiting, and then it happened, and I was like, ah, okay. Like, it was good, but it was just a lot of build-up. But the build-up was so good that I didn't mind, and I also loved that there was a lot of travel in this book. So the constant changing of the settings really helped. And yeah, this is such a fun read. Like, I would highly, highly, highly recommend it. It's definitely one that I'm going to reread lots. The next book I'm going to talk about is actually the first book I read this month, and that is Horrid by Katarina Leno. So this book, I gave it 3 stars. It was good, but it was good, but it wasn't like memorable, if that makes sense. This story follows, what's her name? Jane. Follows Jane. She moves cities or towns to a little town called Maine. She moves from California, so quite a difference from California to this little town called Maine. And she moves into her grandmother's like old mansion that's all manor, and it's like run down because her grandmother died and it's kind of been abandoned. So she moves into there because of some circumstances, and that manor is rumored to be haunted in this town. So we're just following Jane as, you know, weird experiences start happening. It is obviously a haunted house story, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. It has an open ending, which is, I don't think that's a spoiler. I honestly wish more people told, like, in their reviews if it's an open or closed ending, because it could completely change. Like, if I knew this was an open ending, I would not have picked it up. I hate open endings. There's another book in here that had... Did it have an open ending? Yes, it did. It did. Yes, there was another book in here that had an open ending, and it was done in the right way, so I don't mind. But this, I just, like, I felt like I just read this whole story, and then at the end I was like, oh, alright. Like, it didn't feel finished to me. It wasn't bad in any way. It was good. I had fun reading it. It just didn't blow me away. I am keeping this book though, and I will reread it. So that tells you it obviously is not bad because I'm keeping it. Alright, the next book I read was Verity by Colleen Hoover. I read Layla in September, I think, and it was fantastic. I gave 4 stars. I also gave this 4 stars. It was really good. I honestly could not tell you which one I prefer. I think they're both really, really good books. I think they're one of Colleen Hoover's best works. This one is for the girlies that like the open endings, and that like their mind literally scrambled, because there is no explanation for what happened in this book. The sun has officially gone down, so if it is darker, I'm sorry. I don't really know how to explain this book, with no spoilers, obviously. This story follows Lowen. She's struggling with money, and she gets an opportunity to finish a book series by a very famous author, which is Verity Crawford. She accepts. She goes to Verity's home and goes through kind of like her notes, where she finds manuscripts, which they're just about Verity's life basically, and they're personal. They've got nothing really to do with the book that Lowen should be writing, but she's, you know, being nosy, I guess, and she's reading them, and it's explaining her relationship with the love interest in this book, Jeremy. So Verity and Jeremy are married or engaged or whatever, and there's a letter as well that is at the end of the story, and that's why there's a whole like team manuscript or team letter, because they're different, basically different versions of something, and you have to figure out which one you believe in. I can't really say much more because it'll spoil it. If you're asking me what I am, I could not tell you. I was team manuscript, and I think I still am. I did read the extra bonus chapter in the like collector's edition, and literally it gave me nothing. Like, it just made me hate Jeremy, which I loved Jeremy, so it was very weird. But anyway, I wouldn't recommend reading the bonus chapter. It literally is not that helpful. I don't know what I feel about this book. All I know is that I had a fun time reading it. Next book I read was Haunted Australia by John Heffernan. This is just some like book that my boyfriend gave me, and it's actually really funny because my town is in this book. which is really strange because I do live in a fairly small town in Australia. So I was like, oh my gosh, that's us. But it's said to be true ghost stories. I don't know how true they are. They're more like legends. I don't remember what I rated this, like 3 or 4 stars. It was good. It wasn't a story, so it's hard to rate it. It was just like little legends basically, but it was interesting to read and I did enjoy it. So if you live in Australia, I would highly recommend this. If you don't live in Australia, I guess you could still read it, but it probably won't mean much, but you could read it. Next book I'm going to talk about is House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. This was a reread for me. Oh my gosh, I just realized I did 2 rereads last month. Damn, who am I? Anyway, this is a reread. I loved it, 5 stars. If you have not read this book yet, what are you doing? Like, literally, what are you doing? If you like spooky season, this is like the spooky book. It is YA, but like, I think it's like borderline adult. Like, the content in it, I'm like, wow, if I was 10 reading this, I would be traumatized. Even if I was like 15, I'd be like, oh my gosh, what am I reading? This follows 3 sisters, Iris, Vivi, and who's the Gray. She's the oldest one. Iris, Vivi, and Gray. So they went missing when they were kids and they came back like a month later with no memory of what happened, where they went. The only thing that they really had was this big hook scar on their neck, and over the course of the next like few years, visible changes occurred. So their dark hair turned like a white, their eyes turned black, teeth started growing back where there like was teeth, well, wasn't teeth before. It was this, I don't know, it was this whole thing. They turn into different people basically, and it's this big mystery on what's going on. And then one of the sisters, Gray, who is the eldest, goes missing again several years later, and Vivi and Iris have to kind of work together and figure out what happened to their sister and if it is connected to what happened when they were kids and what did happen when they were kids. They don't remember it. Or do they? This is just such like a staple, like so good. Like, even the second time reading it, I was on the edge of my seat, which is crazy because I obviously already read it, so I knew what was going to happen. Okie dokie, the last book on this list is my other reread, which is not really spooky, and it is Fable by Adrienne Young. I read this because I bought the second book in this duology and it was like $20, and I bought it and I'm like, okay, I need to read it. So I read this and I've since decided I'm not going to read the second book because second time around, this book's still like 3 stars. I really like Fable as a main character, but it was just like, I wanted more. I wanted more. And the story itself is interesting, but I don't know. I just, something about it, like, even the second time around, I just couldn't get into it the way I wanted to, and I'm so sad because I literally spent $20 on the second book, and like, it's kind of like a waste of money. But anyway, this book follows Fable. Her dad drops her off on this very, very dangerous island, just leaves her there, and she's kind of has to fend for herself, and she has to try and find her way back to her dad. And it's a lot more than that. There is a lot of talk in here about like things related to boating and like sailing, and I know nothing, so that's kind of one of the reasons I didn't enjoy this, because half of the time I was like, what is going on? Like, you're explaining what Fable is doing, I have no clue what that means because I don't sail boats. So a lot of this was hard to read because if you don't know a lot about it, it just makes it kind of hard. But it wasn't a bad book. I'd give it a go if you're into like pirate stories. It's not really a pirate, is she? She's definitely not a pirate. But if you're wanting that vibe, I mean, I don't know. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, and subscribe if you like, and I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.